Welcome back to today's Photo Minute. My name is Brian Osborne from the Photo Classroom. And with Sports One class coming up this Thursday, it's a virtual class that we're offering, it got me thinking a little bit more about motion photography. Obviously, I've been doing quite a bit of that even with wildlife. And in fact, we often compare wildlife to sports and sports to wildlife. They're really about the same settings. So today I wanted to just share with you a technique. You know, we often are into stopping action when we talk about, let's say, sports pictures. Or wildlife pictures, but sometimes it's fun to actually do kind of the reverse of that, and that is to, in a controlled way, blur some of the motion that we're experiencing. And the most popular part of that is called panning. It's actually where you use a technique where you're actually moving the camera at the same speed as the subject matter, but instead of using a fast shutter speed in order to stop motion, let's say 1,000th of a second, etc., you actually use kind of a medium shutter speed, usually in the range of 1/60th to 2/50th of a second shutter speed. And when you do so, the idea is if you can keep the camera at the same speed as the subject will be sharp, but then the background will have a nice motion or blurry look to it. And the reason I wanted to do this little post is not only is this a fun thing to practice, but I'm actually going to be sharing a picture today of a rabbit that ran through the backyard just the other day at full speed. And I had already captured the rabbit in stop motion. I had done that a couple of weeks ago. Some of you might have seen my post when I did that. And so I decided this time to actually use a slower shutter speed. I did about 100th of a second shutter speed. And by panning with the rabbit, I was able to get a really neat shot. Shows motion in the background, shows a little bit of motion in the rabbit's body, but mainly has the head in focus as well as a good portion of the body as well. So panning is this technique, just as a review, where you use a medium shutter speed, usually a 60th to 1/25th of a second, and that you keep the lens moving at the same speed as the subject in order to get that blurry or movement in the background itself. Hey, two quick things about that. Number one is it takes a ton of practice. To be able to keep the camera at the same speed as a fast-moving subject takes a lot of work. So don't give up, but it'll take a lot of tries, time and time again, at trying to track with it, trying to track with your subject and keep that steady, consistent movement. Number two is I'd make sure that your body is kind of opened up to the subject itself. So in other words, if you know the subject's going to be moving in the space, then you want to make sure that your shoulders are facing forward so that you got the smoothest plane you can to move that lens at that speed. Certainly shorter lenses, lighter lenses are easier to do panning with than the bigger lens that I'm holding right now. It's taken a lot of practice to be able to get that rabbit shot I'm going to be showing. But keep thinking about just what it would take for you to use a medium shutter speed and keep the camera moving at the same speed as the subject. It's called panning. It's a fun thing to play with. Thank you again for joining us for today's Photo Minute. My name is Brian Osborne.